Michael Irons, Worlds Old and New, by Nathan Moore. Chapter 18, Overabundance of Life. Michael Irons, clad head to foot in his usual black attire, strode ceaselessly across the desolate expanse of ancient smooth lava rock. It was a vast field of some long-forgotten expulsion, seeming to have been more of an expanse than an eruption, for the lava rock seemed to radiate gently outward from some single point, like batter poured in a slow, thin rivulet into the middle of a waiting pan. And to find such a place so far from any mountain range, it was all very strange, so Irons felt that inner provocation to investigate. What he had not expected, a sudden shriek from behind. Irons whirled, flintlock pistol drawn, and saw mad eyes wide, grasping hands outstretched, mouth wide in a scream. Irons shot within the same turn from the hip, hitting the crazed man in the forehead, dropping him to the lava rock that instant. Irons felt his heart race. How had this man managed to get behind him? The rock was almost entirely level. There was nowhere to hide. Irons looked down at the corpse and was baffled. The dead man did not appear weathered or starved, and in fact seemed fit, handsome, and in the prime of his life, while his nakedness was strange and the manner of his maddened attack was odd. Everything else seemed normal, or even exceptional. The only other strange thing Irons noted was that he could not place the man's country of origin. He was certainly not of any New World extract Irons was familiar with, but neither could he place the man's mix of features. At best, the man's skin seemed somewhat akin to that of a Sicilian, though how the olive tone remained so light and the skin so pure under such barren and savage conditions, Irons could not imagine. Clearly his instincts had led him right once more, and something was afoot here. It was a mere hour later when Irons found what looked to be a naturally formed tunnel from which the volcanic rock had originally been spilt. However, there was within it a dread symmetry. The cavern's walls were remarkably even, the veins of volcanic rock proportioned and arranged in a manner that made them seem like supports or restraints, or both. With a lit torch, Irons stepped down inside the disturbingly organic tube of lava rock. Before long, it began to level and turn, and Irons realized he was walking now quite easily within a corkscrew-shaped cave. The lava rock became more easy to traverse, its appearance that of a dark, near-obsidian-hued marble. Then it opened into a large round cavern that, despite its size and near black lava rock structure, seemed almost akin to the round yurts favored by the people of the steppe. And against the far wall was what Irons could only begrudgingly, somewhat disturbingly describe as a pair of close folds within the lava rock which resembled a woman's intimacy. And it was leaking. It was leaking something akin to tar when hot, a rich crude oil, yet it was closer to liquid than either of those, and due to that uncomfortable comparison to the slender portal itself, now Irons could only see the black sludge as a fetid afterbirth. As if on cue, something living began to be pushed forth from the grotesquely inorganic orifice. Irons watched, dumbstruck and horrified, as from the sickening eldritch ooze slid and then dropped the body of a man full grown, as if from some hideously unnatural birth. Even before the living form hit the ground, Irons recognized the body as the man he had shot not 1 hour hence. The birthed man grunted upon landing on the unyielding black stone of the floor, such an utterance of normalcy jarring against the horrific surroundings. The man actively stood the next instant, as if refreshed from a nap, absent-mindedly wiping away huge handfuls of the black syrupy sludge. Then he paused a moment, noticing Irons and the flintlock leveled at his face. You already shot me through the head. The man smiled easily after a moment. I cannot imagine a second try will provide a different result. And I apologize for the start I gave you. I had yet to experience death by such a weapon and wished to see its effectiveness. The grin broadened but became marginally more fragile. An impressive thing, but still, I endure. Given the conditions, the man's normalcy struck Irons as an expression of madness. He had seen such calmness within calamity on occasion. He lowered his weapon. You are disallowed from death, concluded Irons. The man's smile reasserted, and his fingers snapped while his face broke into a clever expression of affirmation. It is not that I cannot die, clearly, but, like Prometheus, I am punished in a manner beyond physical limitation. Justly? Inquired Irons direct, his usual cold gaze re-examining the cursed man, who, his lips now absent a smile, answered with straight honesty. Yes. Irons nodded, then looked about the room once more. Something about how the undying man looked at him made Irons loath to allow the man from his line of sight. There were no further clues contained on the walls or floor or the domed ceiling. Irons' eyes returned to fix upon the undying man once more. You are punished with unending life. The man nodded once, those dark eyes beginning to look very hungry. I sought eternal life, and it was given to me, absent any pleasure or freedom. I cannot leave the lava field. There is no food, or not even grasses or dirt, and no water is allowed to fall or trickle herein. I starve without end. Even the consumption of flesh and blood, whether mine or others, gives no relief. Irons grew more suspicious of the man by that implication, and considering the man could not die, hostilities would not be in the favor of Irons. A glance toward the birthing orifice, then Irons once more returned his eyes to the undying man. I have not seen a place like this in all my travels, and while strange, it seems technological to a degree. You say it gave you unending life. The man nodded as if haunted. I examined legends regarding the gaining of life since my youth, and found this place. I cut the throats of 10,000 to activate this ancient, unknowable device. Their bones have long since turned to dust. His eyes refocused and fixed upon Irons. I believe this is a trap and then punishment for those evil enough to find and activate its power. I have concluded, or rather I hope, that my punishment is not eternal. It is not for me to experience 10,000 deaths, for I have long since endured 10 times that amount, but rather I believe I must endure 10,000 lifetimes, one for each that I sacrificed. I may have seen perhaps 150 thus far. Had Irons not suspected the man which had subconsciously prompted his hand to already be rested upon his pistol, death would have been at his throat before he could blink. But as it was, a reflexive dip of the hip and raising of the hand, and the flintlock barked abruptly in the unnatural cave's dark confines. The man's brain smacked upon the wall behind him, his hands mere inches from Irons' throat. The corpse collided with Irons, who leapt aside from it, then collapsed in a heap. Irons immediately fled. While the period of regeneration seemed to be approximately 1 hour, despite such a head start, there was a burning suspicion in Irons that the man would manage to catch up. To expect such ancient places to adhere to modern expectation of reality was folly. In short order, fresh air was regained, and on instinct Irons raced across the cursed flow of lava, reloading his flintlock as he did. It was a frustrating task to do while running, and required, Irons felt rather than heard, and an emotion of combat reflex near precognitive. He spun, greatsword in hand, and as the blade met flesh, his eyes widened and tightened in mounting horror. The half-developed thing which flung itself at him was near transparent with underdevelopment, organs visible and bleeding, bones scarcely holding the body upright, many outright breaking from lack of development. Despite the raw state of despondence and agony, the madness and hate within the milky eyes, wide and lidless, propelled the scarcely formed figure with horrific speed. For Irons, who had seen many men broken in war, and who himself walked the earth and now battled with great conviction and a fathomless rage most could not conceive, the spectacle of wrath before him was beyond even his comprehension. His great sword cleaved through a body which felt more akin to moist bird bones wrapped in watery jelly. The grotesque form collapsed, sundered, falling apart entirely upon impact with the lava rocks, fluids and deflated organs strewn about like beached jellyfish. Irons took the pause to load his flintlock with intent this time, eyes on the ruined flesh, watching as the lava simply took it, like a desert drinks water. While he doubted the person imprisoned here would try such a grossly underdeveloped attempt like that again, the fact that the length of development could be willfully foreshortened meant anticipation of attacks based on timing would be nigh impossible for Irons, and even that assumed there would be no other surprises hidden within this strange and disconcerting place. Greatsword drawn in his right hand, flintlock prepared in his left, Irons once more sprinted toward the edge of this blank landscape, his well-traveled boots conveying him with rapidity over the rough, tightly rippled surface of the lava rock. What made Iron's skin also crawl was the fact that this undying man kept appearing. There were no hills here, no rises, no obstructions beyond the entrance to the cave itself, now well behind him. So how was it that Irons could be ambushed, a hand on his ankle? Irons fell. He twisted and shot, the ball passing so close to his own leg he felt the heated wind against his black leather travel trousers. A more fully formed but still incomplete skull exploded, popping like a bubble emerging from the lava rock itself. The hand grasping his ankle reached forth as if from a bog. He watched in grim disdain as this too was absorbed by the rippled black rock. This time, Irons simply drew his other pistol and ran flat out once more. Apparently there was no lead for him to achieve, merely a glimmer on the otherwise matte black field of lava rock caught his attention, but it was gone the next instant. He did not slacken his pace. If he had to guess, that had been an eye. That was how the undying man knew where he was to be. That was why he did not need to pursue him traditionally. Oh, the creative nonsense that this would allow his assault. Irons simply had to pray there were rules unknown that disallowed the undying from sending body parts at him independently. If that were the case, then he would be tripped by a leg, then grabbed from an arm in either direction while the head watched from a safe distance. And the undying man had not done that, despite having been stranded here for over 100 lifetimes. There must be restrictions. He must need to remain intact. And if he needed to surreptitiously glance with an eye to know where his quarry was, Irons began to run perhaps 20 to 30 degrees off from a straight line toward the edge of the lava flow. Sure enough, perhaps a minute later, a nearly formed head appeared from the ground, looking toward the direction Irons had previously been running. The head was close enough that, as it looked for a half-moment in confusion, Irons managed to aim his remaining flintlock and obliterated the skull with a shot from a distance of 20 paces. He fled at full pace, no longer bothering to reload. When he had run for nearly 20 minutes without spotting even a glimpse of the undying man, then something akin to worry began to creep into Irons' mind. It spoke of a more considered assault, and a man who had lived for over 100 lifetimes ought not to be underestimated. But neither should Irons presume an over-complex stratagem. An unsettling distaste grew in the mouth of Irons. The final exchange would be decided by a coin flip. As if on cue, the edge of the lava field came into sight, and along with it, the undying man, seeming to be fully formed, rose to block Irons' escape. He lunged at Irons, who knew either the attack was to be fully direct or a simple misdirect. Against a foe this swift, only total commitment would do. To Irons, the answer was simplicity. He threw himself at the undying man and countered the feint. The next moment, the great blade of Irons once more obliterated the undying man's skull with such force the body was cast from its feet and hurled aside. Before the body was even fully reclaimed by the field, Irons sprinted the final distance and reached the meager dirt and scrub brush of the high desert beyond. "Wait," came the undying man's voice, sounding as if it came from the rotting throat of a bloated corpse. Irons did not turn around. "Wait," pleaded the voice. "How did you know it was a feint?" There was no reply as Michael Irons walked away.